Hello, this is a little short video about driving in a plug-in hybrid vehicle. This particular vehicle is a Ford C-Max Energi. So it has a plug and it has a battery and it also has an onboard engine. So we're currently driving around in EV mode, which is what you can kind of see there on the screen. Some of the controls you see there is my remaining range on the plug-in battery. I've been driving around this morning, have about 6 miles of range left before it goes into hybrid mode. The gauge on the far left is my threshold meter, so I can work the electric motor, and as long as that blue bar doesn't exceed the top of that range there, then the gasoline engine won't come on. If I go past that, in this case the 12 o'clock position, or nearly 12, it'll turn the engine on if I needed it, if I wanted to have extra power. But right now I'm in EV mode, kind of cruising carefully. With the arrow down below the bottom of that battery icon, it means it's discharging, which is what it's doing right now. But if I lift on the gas, it'll go up, so it's charging up now because it's regen. If I actually touch the brakes, it'll regen more. That's what that little wiggly sign is you see in front of the battery. Make a turn here. So now I'm back on battery, discharging the battery, getting back up to speed again. So the car drives around like a totally electric car. I have a couple more gauges. I have a climate gauge. The current temperature outside is 72 degrees. That happens to be at about the same temperature I'd keep the cabin, so there's no reason to have the AC running at the moment, or even the heater. So I just have the vent running, so that's why there's no battery usage for the climate. There's a little bit of battery usage for other things like radio or gauges or computers, but it's very limited. If I was to turn the radio on, you'd probably see that other gauge increase. I guess not. Turn it back off. If I turn the AC on though, you'll see it increase. See? So that's about AC usage. It's running full blast right now. If it was really hot outside, that meter would go closer to the 5, not to the 3 mark. But I don't need it, so I'll turn it off. Let's see, go back down. And now I'm at a stoplight. That was my battery. That 100% meter means when I was regenning, slowing down and recapturing the energy, I was able to capture 100% of the available energy that was possible to recapture, and it put it back to the battery. So when you're driving around in these electric cars, or even the plug-in hybrids or mild hybrids, you can recapture energy instead of wasting for heat, instead of using the friction brakes. So that's kind of a neat feature also of these electric vehicles. And pretty much all electric vehicles have that regen feature. Some have more aggressive regen modes than others, and many of the newer ones now have a variable regen mode. This car's not a newer one, but I can vary the regen. I can put it in hill descent mode, which kind of gives me a medium. So if I'm in light standard regen right now, I can put it in hill descent mode, which will give me a little step up in aggressiveness, or I can put it in low range, which will give me kind of max regen. Very nearly would give me the ability to do one pedal driving in that mode. So normally when you're driving with an EV, you can, if you noticed, I've been giving a little bit of energy and then letting off the gas, and you'll see that blue meter on the left, climb and then drop, and you'll see my speed doesn't really change that much. So I don't know what they call it. I kind of call it stab and coast, or gas and coast, whatever you want to call it. But it's a little bit of little bit of energy to get up to speed. So I'll bring that bar up to about the 2 bars. That's the most efficient. I find I get max range in this car by pulling up to 2 bars and just let it keep accelerating. And then it'll just keep accelerating until I get to the speed I want. In this case, I want to go about 45. So I'll keep accelerating until it gets to be about that range. And now now I'll back off and keep hold it at 1 bar. And I can hold it like this. But if I'm in traffic, I can let off, and then I can get back on. And I really don't lose very much speed at all. It coasts really well. A fully electric car would coast real far, but this is a plug-in hybrid. It still coasts pretty good, but not as much. But now I see I'm driving a little bit too fast, so I'm going to slow down to get to the speed limit again. I was kind of talking here and not paying attention to what I was doing. So you can see it takes very little energy to maintain your cruising speed. And you can actually, I'm coming up to a red light now, so I'll just lift, and the battery is starting to recharge back, if you see by the arrow. Now I'm regenning, and you can see it by the regen meter. And I'm going to have to come nearly to a complete stop because traffic is pretty stopped in front of me. I didn't have to come to a complete stop. The light turned green, so I'm starting to go again. But if I would have come to a complete stop, it would have given me that brake score that we had seen earlier in the video. So right now I'm kind of in pretty mild traffic. Speed limit's 45, but the light just turned red. So we're slowing down again, and we most certainly would come to a complete stop, most likely. So, and I recaptured all the energy. So you can drive around on these cars and you can use the brakes, but it's really regen. Regen just turns the motor into a generator, and it recaptures the energy and puts a load on the generator, which has the effect of slowing the car down. So you can come to almost a complete stop just with the electric motor alone. And it uses the friction brakes. The car will use the friction brakes for those last really few feet. It feels like a Harley ever used the friction brakes in this car. Now you do have full brakes. There is brakes on all 4 wheels. So in an emergency stop, or if you had to slow down much quicker than you normally would like to, the friction brakes can take over and totally stop the car, just like a regular vehicle would. Or even if the EV system went offline or something happened, some sort of malfunction, you have total control of the car with the standard friction brakes. So it's not an either-or situation. It's use the regen like we're doing here most of the time, and as long as that little thing's wiggling, I'm regenning. And then when it goes away, those last little feet, that last 5 miles or so, 5 to 0, it was the friction brakes. And I had to stop quicker than I wanted to because a bicyclist pulled out in front of me because he thought I was going to stop before I came up to the crosswalk. So I hit the brakes a little bit and stopped about 10-15 feet shorter than I needed to. So, but it's what you have to do, and you have to avoid obstacles. So you can't always use regen. So what you see on the gauge now is I actually have 0 miles of range left on the plug-in power. So pretty soon it's going to click into hybrid mode. And we'll see that when the number goes away on the battery and it turns in just to a filled battery, that'll be my hybrid battery. So what Ford does is it takes a 7.5 kilowatt hour battery and partitions it. So about 5.5 kilowatts hours of the battery is used for the plug-in portion, and about 2 kilowatt hours is used for the hybrid portion. So you can see I have a threshold still. I can still drive. I'm still in EV mode even though my plug-in battery is depleted. So now that's in hybrid, just switched over to hybrid. And so I'm in the hybrid mode just like a regular hybrid car. Still full EV because we're using hybrid. But you saw my threshold dropped when it changed out of hybrid. So if you see that blue bar, if it goes outside of there, that when it turns white, that means the internal combustion engine is running. Now I got to make a turn here, so I dropped my foot off the throttle. It's back in full EV mode here. And I'm turning into my neighborhood. So still driving on the engine. Now I could have not turned the gasoline engine on, and I would have still made it EV mode all the way to the house. But I wanted to show you what happens when it turns the gasoline engine on. Okay, so now the gasoline engine turned back off. And as long as I drive, well, I'll show you like this. As long as I drive and if I stay inside that threshold, then it'll be on battery power only. But you'll see my battery will continue to be depleted. My hybrid battery will continue to be depleted, and that threshold will get shorter and shorter. So I went ahead and passed my house just so I can show you how the hybrid portion works. So I'm in hybrid mode, but still running on full EV. That's what, and the EV Plus that you see down there means the car recognizes that I'm close to home, so it's going to allow me to deplete more of the battery than it normally would have allowed me to deplete if I was away from home, because it thinks I'm pretty close to home, so it thinks it's going to get charged soon, and it's allowing me to use all just EV mode, so I don't have to turn the gasoline powered engine on, or so it won't come on. But I'll make the gasoline engine come on again for you here. So if I had to accelerate, once that white bar comes on, that means I'm on the gasoline engine. And you saw two bars there. You saw a white one and a blue one. That means it was running both. The gasoline engine came on briefly, and then the electric motor was also helping. So I really don't need to use the gasoline engine here, so I'll just drive mildly to get home. So if you have a plug-in hybrid car, you can drive around and you can go to a lot of places without ever turning that gasoline engine on. I made a pretty long trip to the dealership to exchange my level 1 EVSE power supply device, charging device. So I almost made it there and back without running the engine at all. So hopefully this video helps show somebody about how a plug-in hybrid could work. In this mode right now on these batteries, I'm driving full EV. You can see it shows me a gauge there for my tank, my fuel tank, but never really used it except for those brief few seconds that you saw. So pulling into the driveway now. And you can see my threshold has stopped, or lower has dropped. So if I was to continue driving, I wouldn't be able to accelerate very fast before that gasoline engine would come on. But that's fine. That's how these cars are supposed to work. So hopefully you found this video useful. I'll go ahead and power the car down now, put it in park, and power it down, and it gives him my trip information for this most recent trip back. So it says 10.5 miles. 10.5 miles was the trip. 10.2 was in EV mode. I recaptured enough energy for 2.6 miles of regen. So my average miles per gallon on this trip was 999.9, and I used, it says 0 gallons because the engine barely came on while you saw it there. So thanks for watching.